Always true.
I am Ahmed Idris in Eastern Chad, where the world's worst displacement crisis meets one of its most neglected. More than 1 million Sudanese refugees have crossed into Chad, most of them women and children. Aid is stretched thin, clean water is rationed, and the threat of disease is growing. In this episode of Talk to Al Jazeera, we speak to one of the United Nations lead officials here, and a Sudanese refugee activist once targeted by the paramilitary support forces battling for power in Sudan. As the war drags on, we ask, are we witnessing the quiet collapse of the humanitarian system in Chad? And when the world turns away, focused on other crises, what happens to those left behind, crying for help? So, Anthony, if the war in Sudan drags on and funding doesn't come, what will be the outlook for refugees, hundreds of thousands of them in eastern Chad? Does the United Nations High Commission for Refugees have the capacity to deal with the situation?
Of course, as you well put it, all these movements, all the displacement that has come into this particular place is purely because of the war in Sudan. That war has come in various phases, and the one you have just referred to is the last phase that has brought in about 450,000 Sudanese refugees into this eastern Chad region, and particularly in Fashana area. This is the last war or altercations that came in the beginning of 2023. And so we have had refugees coming into this particular zone, Fashana, and the larger Wadai province for the last 2 years. They are still coming in as we speak today. The war at some point, of course, the major influx was brought in when the war started. The RSF, took their positions, and there was this war in Khartoum and the split of the country, and eventually Darfur falling into the hands of the Sudanese forces. So if this continues, and it doesn't look like it's going to stop soon, so if it continues for the next 1 year, I think there are 2 or 3 things that will happen. Number one is that we are going to have even more influxes because very recently, when there was some kind of repositioning within Khartoum, then we realized also a spike in the numbers that came in here. From about January this year as well, we've had much more numbers coming in within the Adre border point, or one of the major crossing points. There are more than 20 crossing points, but Adre is one of the major ones, as well as Tine northerly towards, if we take the direction towards Libya. If that particular war, this particular war continues or aggravates, basically there are 2 things. There is one side where perhaps Chad will come back into the whole map of the humanitarian assistance needs. I think that's one part. Of course, nothing would be much worse than any escalation. That's one. The second one is that we would have many more people coming in, and we have seen that with the confrontations that have happened of late. If it's in Zamzam, and if it's in the other zones within Sudan. For us as the UN, you have asked whether we would be able to make sure that we can assist or take the humanitarian action needed. In terms of the strategies that are there, they are there. In terms of the contingency planning, it is there. It would be reactivated, the contingency planning. I think that's on the operational side. But on the humanitarian side, which is the worst side, is that we will further go down into the abyss, if I might call it that, because as it is today, we are not able, for lack of funding, we are not able to assist the refugees as much as we can. If we look at the statistics, the water per family at some point is up to 16. In camps like this one particularly, it is going down, because of the number of people who are going into these refugee camps. So that would mean more people, and that would mean that particular assistance.
In your estimation, how many refugees can the operations of the United Nations take care of before it finally breaks, considering the situation right now with funding and all that?
Already we have 1.3 million refugees here. Sudanese make up something like 80% of those 1.3 million. And right now, we are not even able to take care of them the way we would need to. There are particular sectors that we are not able to cover fully. If we take the education sector, that is the case. If we take the WASH, which is the water and sanitation, that is the case because we are not able to pump enough water for the refugees. We are not able to give the refugees the education they want. The health sector itself, we are not able to buy enough medicine for these refugees. We are not funded to more than 13% of the needs as reflected in the Humanitarian Action Plan or the Humanitarian Needs Plan that covers Chad alone. So you can see where we are.
Has the world normalized catastrophes like what's happening in Chad and Sudan, for example, simply because this crisis, especially the one in Sudan, is far away from centers of power and the cameras?
Certainly they are far away from the cameras, and the cameras will never show enough. This is a totally, completely, it's really a forgotten crisis. In Africa, this is the second largest refugee population, the Sudanese. And in terms of funding, I don't know, but I would not want to imagine that it is among the top 5 best funded. That says its story by itself. Yes, indeed, this is a totally forgotten, very, very sadly forgotten humanitarian crisis. And as it is today, we are trying to think about it, more to move towards development. Maybe the long-term effects of development would be felt, but the base of it is really the need for humanitarian action.
We have hundreds of thousands of refugees from Sudan here in eastern Chad and elsewhere in Chad who at the moment are not sheltered. What is stopping aid agencies from moving them to emergency shelters like the ones we saw established by the United Nations High Commissioner for Refugees? We're talking about more than half the population, refugee population, not properly accommodated. Is it the logistics? Is it funding? Or is it political will, lack of political will?
It is definitely not logistics. We have done bigger relocations than this all around, Africa, all around the world. I think that's one. Definitely it's not the political will, at least not from the Chadian government, who is a very major partner for UN and UNHCR in particular here. It is purely a funding issue. It's purely a funding issue because if you're not able to build enough houses in Camp A where you want to take the refugees, or Village X where you want them to settle, then they will not be able to go. And even if they go, they will be going into a lesser problem than they are living or that they are having wherever they are right now. They will be able to have maybe a house over them, but they will not be able to have enough water. They will be able to have a house, maybe they will not have enough education. They can be able to have education, maybe they will not have health facilities, or food for that matter, or other non-food items. So that's really the stark nature of this particular crisis that we are having.
So do you worry, considering the number of people coming in? I mean, the war has not ended in Sudan and more people are coming. Do you worry that some of these people, some of them may even die before they even get registered to receive help?
Maybe in Chad, they would not necessarily die because of the brotherly nature of the Chadian people, because of the resilience of some of these, internally or some of these displaced people here. But we know, and we have heard stories about, very gory stories about how some of these particular families are broken because maybe the males are not able to make it across the border, because maybe those who are unwell are not able to make it across the border, and all these atrocities that have been happening, they are recorded, on our side, so that, you are able to see that some of them have not been able to make it. Within Chad, barring a major, maybe health catastrophe that would come, and with our level of funding, I think that would kill many people, if at all we were to have some kind of a health, scare around. I don't think we are prepared for that financially. Otherwise, I think that's it. If at all we were to have a major, let's say, food sufficiency issue, for example, if we had some kind of drought that would come, then people would definitely die, because everybody is just on the flip. Really, we are just barely able to carry our heads above the water.
Now, reports say that cholera was reported in areas close to Adre, which is the epicenter of this refugee crisis, or rather the number of refugees there. If this disease spreads, are we looking at a very, very serious crisis at hand? And do you have the ability to deal with the situation?
Yes, I'm aware that in the last 3-4 weeks there have been some cholera cases, around the border. But so far, the Chadian health authorities, together with the Humanitarian, action group, have been able to contain it, simply because where it was the source is a very well-defined area. It's at the entry point within Adre, so it has not been able to spread into the camps.
Now, the refugee crisis is remaking Chad. Water shortages, we're talking about food inflation, collapsing job markets. Is there a threat that this could ignite tension between the host community as well as the and the refugees on one hand? Does the humanitarian response also address some of these concerns?
Yes, I think so. I can straight think about 2 or 3 of them. For example, the relations between the great people of Chad and the Sudanese refugees, and maybe the other refugees, because we have about 3 other refugee cases, but the biggest one is Sudan. There has been a very well concerted and very fruitful process of peace building or brotherliness, so to say, between the Chadian people and the Sudanese people who are here. So up until now, we don't see any ticking bomb around that. So I'm sure that that would definitely not be one of the ticking bombs that we would want to speak about.
Can we say that the host community is sort of left behind in the scheme of things, or is it a true reflection of the situation on ground?
There are particular zones where for every 3 refugees, there's only 1 host community person. And essentially, that means that whatever comes for the refugees would be able always to be benefiting the host community. So on top of the brotherly nature that we have that stops that particular tension, there's also a very, very well unintentional approach by humanitarians and UNHCR for that matter, to be able to take care of, to include the host community in all our interventions. If it's in education, where we build the schools, if it is in health centers, where we build health centers in the host communities so that both communities can benefit from that. If it is distributions that we make to the health community, to the host communities as well as refugees. If it is our cash-based livelihood systems where we target the host community as well as refugees. So I think to that extent, we have tried our best in trying to make sure that the host community is taken care of as well.
Many women and children are, in fact, affected by the crisis in Sudan. In fact, more than half the refugee population here in Eastern Chad and other parts of Chad are women and children. Is there any form of support in terms of psychological support, emotional support to help them deal with their trauma?
There are psychosocial interventions that are happening in all our camps. For example, in all the refugee sites, refugee settlements, there is always a psychosocial partner. It is not enough, for sure, for lack of funding, but that is a problem, or that is a particular aspect of the particular problem that we have that is well known to UNHCR and is well known to our other, partners, including the World Health Organization and the other health-based partners. The psychosocial health and the psychosocial healing is one of the unseen, so to say, injuries that we do have from this particular war and from any war.
Many lives, millions of lives hang in the balance because of the crisis. Are we saying, is it true to say that the world has stopped listening? to what is happening here in Chad and Sudan? Are we witnessing the collapse of the humanitarian mission or humanitarian efforts across the world, most especially in forgotten crises like Sudan and the refugees or its aftermath here in Chad?
The humanitarian system, in terms of preparedness, in terms of sensitivity, in terms of ability, the humanitarian actors, I think, are as sharp as ever. Because of experience, of course, we learn much more and we are much, much more ready. But the world that is supposed to react, they are listening, but I don't know if they are really listening with the 2 ears. And if they are listening with the 2 ears, if their hands are really being put into action or their hearts. This particular emergency or this particular influx that we are having for the Sudanese is almost forgotten. I mean, what better sign than our, financial requirements that are only 13% funded, not just this year, but it's been reducing as it goes. And yet we've not managed really to assist these particular people. So you can see that people or the world is becoming more indifferent to the suffering. If at all there was to be a new influx, God forbid, then perhaps the donors to be, or the people who would be able to give this particular, maybe they would have another jerk reaction and be able to give much more. But I think you would understand as well from where some of these particular donors are coming from. There are so many emergencies in the whole world, all of them with different requirements. But of course, this particular one is one of the most terrible ones that is going on because it is unfolding right in front of our eyes, but we are seeing less and less and less engagement by the donors.
As the United Nations pleads for funds to stop the system from collapsing, we meet someone who's lived this crisis from inside since fleeing Sudan 2 years ago. One of nearly 1 million Sudanese in Chad, still waiting for the world to catch up.
The reduction of assistance or support from some countries, namely from the US, after the new government of Trump. We have been notified with these decisions, and actually almost everyone has been affected by these decisions, especially the education sector, the secondary school students. They are really suffering following these decisions because the PBRM was the agency that's supporting the secondary school. Since that time, since February till now, there is no any support for the secondary school, and this is a big loss. And in terms of many activities, protection and shelter, we have been also notified by the UNHCR that such kind of activities it will be reduced or stopped, and this will definitely affect almost thousands of refugees who are in need of this kind of activities. So we appeal to the global or international communities who are in a position to support. They should not forget the Sudanese crisis, because we feel that we have been actually victimized twice. Victimized by the war and also victimized by such decisions which is really affecting the refugees in Eastern Chad, because here we have thousands, almost 1 million, refugees around, and this would really affect them so much, and really, especially the vulnerable groups, because almost this camps is full of vulnerable groups, such as disabled people, elderly people, sick people, orphaned, and widows, because in this war we lost thousands of fathers. So for sure we have thousands of widows and thousands of orphans who are in need of such health care, and also thousands of injured people who lost their part of their bodies, and they cannot do any kind of job they can earn to spend on their daily lives or daily needs. And this is really going to affect them all. We hope if this decision can be revisited, and also other partners can also intervene to fill the gap I'm appealing on behalf of the Sudanese refugees in Eastern Chad if you can have such a petition or a call to all the humanitarian actors globally, and especially I would like to call the Sudanese communities globally if we can stand together on having a humanitarian call through which we can also provide such kind of funds and supports, which will be the best way in responding to this crisis. We cannot just stay like this.
Do you have any alternative means of taking care of your family members if aid, for example, stops today?
If this question is for me personally, the answer will be different when it is not personal. If the question is generally for the general refugees, I will say that almost most of the refugees, they don't have alternate options in responding to this crisis, because before coming here, they lost everything home, either by looting or by burning, because almost the areas in Janina and in other areas in West Darfur, in particular, in general in Darfur and in other parts of Sudan, there was a systematic way of destruction and also a systematic way of looting, properties, public and private properties. So almost everybody lost everything. People, they came here with empty hands. They have nothing in hands they can rely on. If they have to look about working opportunities, here there is no working opportunities available. And if it is available, it's also the earning is very little, will not cover the daily needs of the refugees. This is actually one of the main challenges. The second challenge is we have really a big number of vulnerable groups. Like I mentioned, that we have the disabled, thousands of disabled people, thousands of orphan children, and thousands of widows. So, and also elderly people. All these categories of community, they will not have actually this ability and capability to do any kind of income generation activities or to do any kind of a work that they can earn from.
One of the things that I would like to know from you, have you ever thought of going back home anytime soon?
Going back home to Sudan, it is a real dream. We have to do everything possible to change Sudan. We should not escape or run away from the reality. We have been displaced, forced to be displaced. I didn't come here willingly because I have been targeted, and many thousands of people there have been targeted and named by the RSF, actually. My name was in the list of those who are wanted. Some of them have been actually captured, slaughtered, and killed. And definitely, if I have been found, they attack my home. So if they find me, definitely I will be one of them. Almost, they were also killing my wife and my kids. They put the guns in their heads, looking after me. So finally, I arrived here. But with all these facts, I will not think about leaving Sudan. No, I will think about going back to Sudan any moment from now if the situation changed. And I'm sure the change will come. It is very hard. It's very difficult. People are suffering, and Sudanese are suffering. But I think that the change will come, and we will be the hands that is going to change Sudan.
You spoke about the situation back home. What are you hearing about the current situation back home in Sudan?
What I'm hearing, actually, back home, it is really very horrible, because Al Jazeera, for example, it is under the full control of the RSF. The life is actually not that good life. People are living under threats. They cannot feel free to do anything. That is one. If I have to think about other cities like Al-Fashir, Nyala, Zalingi, Al-Dain, and other areas, also the same situation of Al-Jinin is there. Maybe Nyala is worse. But Al-Fashir is the worst because the area is under full siege, and actually people are suffering from hunger because the RSF, they control the outside of the area and they put there under siege, full siege, and they are actually, there is no access. Is access in and out from Al-Fashir city for food or any aid. Even the organizations is not allowed to send the humanitarian aid. So people of Al-Fashir now are leaving. They are forced to leave Al-Fashir because of hunger, because there is no actually food available in the area. That is why people are leaving the area. And the bombing is ongoing. There are, bombing and shelling. Al-Fashir, the same what happened in Al-Janeina is now happening in Al-Fashir. People of Al-Janeina, they have been actually targeted on tribal and ethnical backgrounds. And the same situation is also now going on in Al-Fashir. So we are also losing hundreds of people because of these bombs. And this is the situation that what I'm hearing every day, unfortunately. And the same situation is also applies to other areas in Sudan, not only Al-Fashir, north of Al-Fashir, around Al-Khouay, Al-Ubaid, Al-Dibebat, many areas generally in Kurdistan and Darfur. Just generally in Kurdistan and Darfur, the situation is not actually that good. Killing is on every day. Crimes against humanity, war crimes is committed every day, and even genocide is ongoing.
Thank you so much, Hatem Abdullah Hassan.
No, thanks for this. Thank you so much, and thanks to Al Jazeera team for coming.
Thank you.